to have in that area someday. It is not a plan to start building today. In fact, we are many, many steps and many, many, many years away from anything like that. So, but this is a step that we're required to do by law. We actually did one, I think we approved it back in 2016. And this new council at the time looked at that and thought it was too much, it was too focused on residential, and we wanted to review that and improve it. So that's what we've been doing, staff has been doing, and consultants, thank you. And but just to remind everybody, this is just conceptual, and it helps inform future planning, but we are a long ways away from any dirt being dug out of houses or anything being built over there. So.
Great. What in the world is that?
You're here. Thank you, Erica.
Yeah, so as the mayor was saying, that we do have a preliminary concept plan for this area that was done in 2016 and was accepted by council. The 2016 preliminary concept plan was just that, a preliminary concept plan. The focus was primarily on housing, supporting employment uses for the area, and then we talked a lot about parks and open space and public land. As the mayor was saying, it was really intended to inform future decisions. There are many, many steps before you'll see development happen in this area. The plan in 2016 was a preliminary plan and didn't address necessarily all of the Title 11 requirements that Metro requires for a concept plan. And so in this rendition, we are meeting all of those requirements. So we have a full package if the council decides to ask for a UGB expansion next year.
Did those Title 11 requirements come after 2016? Is that why they weren't?
No, they, I don't know why they weren't all addressed in 2016, but
Okay.
yeah. So the purpose of this relook, again, we're looking at new opportunities for employment and economic growth as council goals have changed. We're looking at new land use patterns. And we're looking at an updated transportation plan. And we're also looking at how the new state rules related to housing will impact this plan area and the implications of that. We've done a lot of analysis through this work. So we kicked off this project, I know, in the spring of 2021, and we really anticipated to have this project wrapped up at the end of last summer, early fall. But the CAC, they really have asked some really important questions as we've gone through this project, and we've kind of slowed down to make sure that we're hitting all of their questions and making sure that they have all the analysis to make the decisions that they want to make to move forward. Because really this is the community's plan, and we want to make sure that this plan really envisions what the community wants.
Yeah, and I think additionally, HB 2001 kind of threw a wrench in the works because the housing goals and mandates that came out of HB 2001 from the state are kind of in conflict with how you do planning, especially as you think about density, and that made it very difficult to really root through.
It did, and I'm gonna touch on that here in a couple more slides. Doug, you have-
I just,
He was just agreeing.
So just a quick about Sherwood West. It's about 1,200 acres. There's 126 properties with 110 property owners, and the average property size is about 9.8 acres in size. So work and analysis today. As I said, we have done a lot of work. And the next couple of slides really talk about each task that we've done. But I'm just going to kind of highlight the bigger tasks that we have worked on. So meetings 1 through 5, we developed a vision goals and evaluation criteria for this project. We also came up and developed a public engagement plan that the TAC and the CAC agreed on. And just to let you know, we have a technical advisory committee made up of city partners and different agencies to review this project, as well as our community advisory committee made up of 15 Sherwood residents and residents who live in Sherwood West. We talked about the economic opportunities and challenges in the area. We did 20+ stakeholder interviews in Sherwood West. We talked with, wineries, we talked with healthcare folks, we talked to developers who develop business parks, to feel out what the development trends are in this area. We reviewed housing policy implications, the transportation plans within this area, and then we also held an online open house and survey for feedback. We also came up with these 6 kind of what we call concept themes for the plan, and these are really the layers that we're going to see in the plan. And I know the last time I presented to you on the update, I talked about each one of these themes individually, because we have these really nice cut sheets that explain all these themes, and we used them at our last open house as well. Excuse me. So I'm not going to go into great detail here. But our themes really touch on mixed employment areas within the plan area, how we can utilize Chicken Creek as a nice greenway with a nice trail that connects the community together to the wildlife refuge. We talk about active transportation and then neighborhood form, good neighborhood form, and what that looks like. We talk about street connectivity and then the Elbert Road design concept, and that's really how do we pull together the good concepts from Sunset that we all like and kind of emulate that down all the way down Elbert. So we have a nice transition through the community. So, and if you see those cut sheets online, there's some amazing pictures in there of what that could look like. We also did a buildable lands inventory, and this inventory was really important for us because it allowed us to get to a baseline of net buildable acres within that plan area, so we could start showing and conceptualizing those acres into different land use designations, so we could do the calculations for different densities. Then we did the analysis of housing metrics based on the middle housing assumptions. And I think this is where we kind of got bogged down, maybe for 1 or 2 meetings. And I have to say that this is the first concept plan in the metro region since House Bill 2001. And so we wanted to take a look at what the implications could be from that bill in this area if developers decided to utilize middle housing in our single family zones. And so we did these, we did calculations based on our residential densities and then increased them by, 10%, 15%, 20%, and even 50% to see how the densities would increase if folks decided to utilize House Bill 2001 and what that would look like.
Yeah, just because I know people are going to listen to this and I want to make sure they understand. Under House Bill 2001, if there is a planning zone, a zoned area of the city that allows a single family detached zone house, the builder can decide on their own to put in a duplex, a triplex, or a quad, depending on the lot size. If the lot size is big enough to support a quad, they can come in and put a quadplex on there. So we've lost a lot of control because the state passed that law. So these increased assumptions, because what Metro looks for is they're going to look for a certain overall density. And we don't want Metro saying, well, just because we would prefer like low density residential in the area to assume that's what the density will be, because under HB 2001, the builders can build to a higher density. So that's why we did some of that upsizing to tell that story. Did I get that right?
No, you did. You said that perfectly.
Yeah.
And then I also want to stress that I think the CAC has been really innovative in our plan designations. For example, they have a plan designation just for middle housing itself and for cottage cluster housing. And so when you create these individualized zones just for middle housing or cottage clusters, you can develop your own development code around that zone, because that's excluded from House Bill 2001. So it provides the city kind of more options in how we address middle housing in those zones. The CAC also, they looked at a new north-south connector road, and I'm gonna go over that here in the next couple of slides. And then the CAC really wanted to know what the jobs to housing analysis was. So throughout this process, we've kind of been checking in and looking at that jobs to housing ratio. And then we had a conversation with the CAC about master planning, kind of like all the tools that could go along with master planning, whether it's a city-led master plan project, a private developer-led project, or a planned unit development. So we looked at examples of Villawa was a private led master planning project, and Frog Pond, for example, right now is a city-led master plan project in Wilsonville. We looked at trails and open spaces and where they should go within the planning area within meetings 6 to 11. And then kind of the bigger meetings that we had, which was a really fun meeting, I think, for our CAC, was they played this chip game with the different acreages within the planning area and different land use designations, and they put together 3 alternative land use maps. And we took those maps out to an open house in October. We had 80+ people attend at the Ridges schools. We also did an online open house with the survey, and we got 100+ survey responses. And then after that meeting, we took those 3 maps back to the CAC, had a conversation about the community input that we received, and kind of narrowed it down to ultimately one preferred map.
Do you get the feeling of those that attended, there was a good balance between current city residents versus Sherwood West? Did we have a cross?
We did have a cross section, and we actually had a map there where people could, put a pin in where they lived.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we also measured it online as well. We also had another.
So what does a good cross mean? 50% Sherwood West people, 50% Sherwood people, or 80-20 one direction or another? So what was the mix of people that participated?
I don't have that exact mix number at the top of my head, but I can definitely provide that to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Just anecdotally, when I was there was a lot of people that lived around the Ridges.
Yes, there was quite a few people that lived in Mandel Farms,
Yeah.
and I held a coffee clatch with the homeowners association last summer, and had about 15 people from that subdivision come to City Hall and just speak informally about the plan and answer
in that area.
their questions.
Thanks.
Yeah. So after the open house, we held another developer tour for developers. We talked to, I drove the van that day, so I didn't have that much of a conversation, but we had folks from Graymore Development, or I think it was the Oregon Trust,
It was Pack Trust
Pack Trust,
and
and Trammell Crow.
Trammell Crow and an industrial broker.
Yes. And so we took them on a tour and really let them know, what the CAC, what their thoughts were like in the northern area for employment, and this new zone I'm going to talk about here in a couple minutes, the hospitality zone, to get additional feedback from them to see what would work, what wouldn't work. So what we've heard from the community. So we've heard, we have received lots of support for the additional employment uses in Sherwood West, especially the portion to the north, which I promise you're gonna see a land use map here in a minute, so you know what I'm talking about. And then we also heard support for additional employment uses along 99, including the new hospitality zone.
This is through the survey.
This is through the survey and the comments received at the open house. We want to make sure that there is a balance of uses in the plan, and as always, there's continued support for open spaces and trails. That's a biggie, Everyone loved our trail maps and our open space maps at the open house.
There was also a lot of conversation about not just having trail through the neighborhood, but making sure that all your trails. So you go from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood.
And then there's large support for cottage cluster housing types within the plan area itself.
I had a question about that. When we talked about the cottage clusters, they were under 900 feet and they're very small footprint. Is there such thing as multiple kinds of cottage clusters? So we could say, hey, these are the ones, the small cottage clusters, and then we want some that were a little bit more large, just the one.
That would be townhomes then. I mean, you gotta be really careful, because if you create flexibility in that cottage cluster code, they'll come in and just build to the max size and density they can.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can't call it a different kind of cottage cluster,
Aren't you then in more like a duplex or a
No, I was actually thinking going the other direction of somebody who wants a little bit bigger home, because we talk about why we're not doing 2 stories in those. But what if we were to have?
they can have a loft?
I know they have a lot, but what if we were to do, and again, we're going too far in the weeds already. I'll talk to you later about it. I just didn't want to, can you only have one type of cottage cluster? Or is there another?
It's a possibility. We're
Okay,
in the plan, we've kind of called out it could be its own zone. So
Yeah.
that's something that could be looked
Okay.
at in the future as a possibility.
I know that the state puts a very specific definition on cottage cluster. Doesn't mean we can't come up with a different name for something else, as long as we can make it work within the state code.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we've heard a lot from the Eastview neighborhood, which I'll point out on the next couple of maps. They are not in support of this proposed north-south connector road. So our concept plan maps here. I know that all of you received this on Friday, probably studied them all weekend.
Or today.
What did you change?
So right here, right now, this is kind of, actually, this is the preferred concept plan
With 2
and land
changes?
use.
There's 2 changes on here.
Yes, I'm gonna get to those
From
changes
what
here.
we got from
Yes,
Friday? There's
yes.
been changes since Friday?
The changes happened last Thursday night at the CAC meeting, and we didn't have time to.
Oh, gotcha.
On the map.
Okay.
And they're fairly minor changes, and I'm gonna go over those changes. So in the north area, is really that purple shaded area to the north. That's really an employment focus. There's a mix of housing just north of Chicken Creek. And I do want to bring to your attention. You know what? It's not popping up my slide here. So that's okay. Let's see if I can get my cursor. Okay. So we had a CAC meeting last Thursday and a couple of changes were made in this northern area here. We had, at our last CAC meeting in November, we had some citizens come in and talk, they spoke to the CAC about wanting a residential buffer in this area, in this northern area. And we brought that change back to the CAC and TAC, and the TAC looked at the map and their suggestion was, employment uses have less impacts actually than residential to residential neighborhoods. And they had a conversation about that. We brought it to the CAC, told them what the TAC thought, and the CAC recommended that this area of middle housing be changed to purple again for employment uses, because really industrial uses, when they're adjacent to residential uses, have minimal impacts. And we can provide a large enough buffer area within our development code so those impacts are really lessened.
And Bruce, what was the alternative term we came up for industrial? Because we don't want people thinking.
Yeah, it's really
It's
not
industrial.
just, yeah, we're calling it, it's really technology park, innovation park.
Yes.
Right.
Something to that effect.
Not,
For
not,
sure.
not an oil refinery.
Exactly. I should be saying industrial, you know, a tech park.
And so why does the TAC think it has less impact than residential? I mean, if it's abutting other property, which is also residential. I mean, I would prefer to have residential next to me than a,
Well, the property in question that it's abutting is actually more like
Farm.
Farm,
yeah.
It's more.
And so they,
Right.
it's, yeah.
I
That's
think
what I
that
heard from
what I heard from the TAC and what we all talked about on Thursday was if that middle housing, that could be 50 houses, you know, or I don't know exactly the acreage up there, but like you're talking about medium to medium high density housing area, and they're gonna be right up against the property line. Could be 2-3 stories tall. Like, if it's part of the employment area that's buffered, you're gonna have parking spaces and trees
Some kind
and
of more open.
fencing, and it's gonna be way less impactful than having 50 houses there with 100 cars and all the traffic.
And you wouldn't have people complaining
About
that live there
farms.
about spraying and fertilizer and.
Right, yeah, the impact goes both ways, to your point.
Yeah, we get complaints sometimes about residential, about the farm uses adjacent to residential. So I think that was, the idea was farmland was more compatible with employment land than farmland.
Well, I think that'd be a great thing to explain, because I know the homeowner, or the farm owners on that other side, they actually reached out to me and they had that concern, but maybe to have that sort of explanation.
Mhm.
The other concern we had in the meeting was leaving that residential spot on an island there, away from any other services, parks, or amenities, right? They're kind of just orphaned up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the mayor has a question.
Oh.
Or, sorry, the council president.
Whatever, just, hey, dude is fine. The decision to swap it, remove that island of housing is smart. I completely agree.
Question though on that, is there any, if I'm working at that technology park, where do I go to lunch? Is that purple area also include restaurants and lunch places and?
Well, that goes to my follow-up. I was gonna comment that some of the multifamily could or should have the flexibility, but could be more like mixed housing or mixed use instead. So you have restaurants and shops with near where people live and close to those industrial areas, like the technology areas.
Yeah. That's my concern. If I had to drive, 10 minutes either direction to get lunch, it's a lot of extra traffic.
Well, neighborhood commercial and noon commercial type stuff I think makes sense, like where it's multifamily there.
Right here.
Yeah.
Well, part of it or all of it. So you're still going to get the housing units, but let them build some services on the ground floor of some of the buildings.
Okay.
Two other changes that occurred, and this is primarily almost a swap here. So this parkland, this park area right here has been changed to medium density residential.
Oh,
Right here, can you see that's really tiny?
so we're taking away a part.
No, we're gonna swap it with this land area right in here. So in the next iteration, this area right in here will be a park. This will be medium density residential with a little green star for a neighborhood park. And that's because this area right here is so close to services that it could probably today almost be served with, water, sewer and everything that we need for development.
Pretty much everything else still needs a lot of infrastructure.
Yeah. And we've also heard from the property owners as well that they would like to develop with housing. So moving to the far west district right
Wait,
here.
can I go back up to that housing we're gonna change
Mhm.
that for the housing.
Yep.
When you say you can create buffers, what does that mean or look like? Like you said, if we change it back to employment.
This is back up.
Oh, back up top, yeah,
Right here.
yeah, and we change it back to employment. But you said with the buffers and everything, it should get, what are we talking, what are we meaning buffers? Setbacks?
So setbacks, yeah, for employment uses, so we could say that, for example, if you're an employment use, abutting the rural reserve boundary, you have a, 60-foot setback.
So is that something we have to then put in our code?
Yes.
Because we don't have that right now.
Yes,
So that would just be something we can consider
Yep.
doing to
And then
accommodate.
There's 100 things that need to be added to the code to implement
Yeah,
this plan.
okay.
That would be one of them.
that would be one of them, and the CAC touched on that last week,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Because I mean, landscaping as well.
Executives are looking like Roy Rogers, Schultz, if little houses are.
Oh, yeah,
You don't want that.
yeah.
So moving on, the far west district is by far our, kind of our lowest density neighborhood. We have some, cottage clusters up in this area and two little neighborhood parks. The west sub area right down here, north of Kruger, south of Chicken Creek, we have a large community park, about 15 to 20 acres in size. We have mixed use and middle housing, just west of the high school. And we also have a mixture of cottage, cluster, and medium density housing along Elwood Road. And then a lower density housing, in this hilltop, in the hillier areas of Sherwood West.
And then the greenway through the middle, is that the Cedar Creek Community Park?
So
or
this is
that
the
circle?
Chicken Creek
Oh.
Greenway
Okay.
through here that connects up to the wildlife refuge, and we'll see that here on our next slide that talks about trails, parks, and open space.
Okay,
But we have a large community park that kind of integrates in with that Chicken Creek Greenway.
and with the change to the northern one, would the park up there integrate on the upper? not
Yes,
that one,
Right, it would
yeah.
integrate right up here with the Chicken Creek Greenway as well.
Okay.
Yep.
And would those be showcase kind of parks like Snyder Park, except on that side, or is this a totally different kind of?
So the idea is that they're the big, what do they call this?
Community parks.
Community
Yeah.
parks, like a,
No, but like a Snyder, right?
Yeah.
That's like a, okay,
yeah, but keep in mind, the final location of the parks is still required the city to buy the land and locate the property.
yeah.
Like, it's concept plan, but it doesn't mean the park will necessarily end up exactly there, because it's still incumbent upon us to find the funding and find a buyer, will sell it.
Okay.
So Eric, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to switch to the next agenda
Oh,
item.
okay, great. I have a couple more slides. Thank you for that. So in the Southwest District, we actually have this new zone, this hospitality zone, and we've talked about, different kind of uses in this zone, related to, farm to table, like wine uses, hotel uses. Also within the zone, just south of, Kruger, north of Chapman, we have mixed use and multifamily, south of Kruger Road. And then we have a mix of housing and lower density housing on the hilltops. And then we have some multifamily and some, small commercial, down along Highway 99. So trails, parks, and open space here, this map shows kind of our,
Just a Keith, do you have a question?
yes, thank you.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
My apologies, Erica and Eric, using your crystal ball. You foresee us moving in a direction where we're, instead of having labels of medium or high or low, density zoning, that it's just lot size? Or that's kind of, because we don't control truly what the density will be. We just control lot sizes.
Yes, and so that's the next step. And once it's brought into the UGB, we'll do another comprehensive planning process that will reflect zoning on, every parcel. And so every residential parcel will have its own lot size.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, generally speaking, I like the plan. If we could, from in different places, as we further refine, just get more employment in there one way or the other, that'd be great.
So here's the parks and open space plan. And are there any questions about this slide before I move on? All of our trails are really interconnected. They integrate with, the existing boundaries of Sherwood, as well as to the wildlife refuge.
One of the things I really like is there's trails on both sides of that greenway. So both housing on both sides gets taken advantage of. And ideally, it's a couple of crossings in a couple of crossings.
So this is the conceptual plan for streets within the plan area. We've carried over the two concepts that were in the 2016 preliminary concept plan. One is the rerouting of Elwert with 2 roundabouts up this way. And then we've also left Elbert Road, straight as well, because we're gonna have to do some additional studies to figure out, which one is best, for the city down the road. There are lots of questions to be answered, especially with the rerouting of Elbert. And then the CAC committee had this additional north-south connector road. And what we've done here is that we're gonna show it in the plan, but we're gonna have it on its own little separate map within the plan, just and giving it more text, so people know that, hey, this is a conceptual road, we don't know the exact alignment, but this is something that the city could aspire to.
Is this the one
have
that
in the future.
neighborhood had?
The Eastview neighborhood.
Yeah, one of the challenges, when you create these maps, everyone looks at it and assumes that's where the road's gonna be. But and that's far from the case.
Where is this Eastview neighborhood at?
It's, can you go back to that slide?
Here.
It's just north of Chicken, right where the Chicken Creek thing is, right there.
Right
Oh,
here
okay.
is the Eastview Road, the Eastview neighborhood.
But the idea, and again, for anyone listening, is we have huge population growth in Yamhill County. They're all coming up 99 to get to their jobs, not all, but a lot of them. They're going to Hillsborough, they're going to Loa, Beaverton, Wilsonville, downtown Portland. And we're seeing a large increase in traffic on Elwert as people are cutting over to the west side. And ideally, we're putting all the traffic that's flowing through our community around our community, so we can figure out an alignment to the south of Elwert that gets those folks around our community. It's better, especially trucks and stuff like that. A lot of work to do, but we need to get kind of a conceptual pin in the map as we start having these conversations with the county and metro.
So the diagram here on the right-hand side of the feature is really the conceptual transportation diagram. So we show that north-south connector and then the rerouting of Elbert Road. So we know that,
Can I make
Yes.
a suggestion change on that?
yes,
Or a suggestion, kick back to CC, that the big gray dotted line for the northwest connector, it would be great to see that just run all the way out to Shoals Sheriff, Shoals Ferry, or Shoals Sherwood. Just because that's what we're really
The
trying
road will
to
never make
accomplish.
sense unless it
Doesn't make sense if it just goes to Edie, we need to get it all the way out to Shoals Sherwood.
I think there was a miss on our consultant's part in the way that they studied this, the way they did the traffic studies on this, had it terminating in Edie. And that concept makes no sense.
Making a left turn from ED onto, that's gonna be a nightmare all day.
Well, but it's not solving the problem.
Oh, I know.
The problem is it's bypassing Sherwood,
Yeah.
not going half bypass.
Yeah, half bypass.
so we know that all streets are gonna be upgraded to urban standards in the future, bike lanes, sidewalks. Let's see, we have selected roadways in the plan that will have travel direction in each direction with a center turn lane. So those roads are Shoals Sherwood, Elbert, Edie, just east of Elbert, and then Chapman Road. And then we also show the pedestrian crossing near Sunset that's planned. We also show a grade separated crossing just north of Brookman and Chapman Road that we've been talking about as well. And then we have the Elbert Road realignment, which really needs to be studied further, and then also the north-south connector, which also needs to be studied a bit further. So our transportation recommendations in the plan, we'll have we'll adopt a design concept for Elbert Road. Really, that's how it transitions with Sunset, and Elbert will be a 3-lane arterial with bike lanes and sidewalks. As I said, further study for the realignment of Elbert Road to really pick the best route and layout. Upgrade Edie Road from Elbert to Borchers as a 3-lane collector for the city's TSP. Upgrade Edie Road west of Chicken Creek to a 2-lane collector. And then we're gonna keep the north-south connector in the plan just as a concept for future study. Employment and housing metrics, really quick before I close. Job metrics. So looking at the jobs created in this plan, we took the total acres of all the land use designations, employment land use designations. And then we gave them an estimated jobs per acre to get to a total jobs. Then we looked at our housing created within this plan, which I'm going to talk about housing next. But in this plan itself, we're looking at a jobs housing ratio of 1.4. If, for example, if we see 10% of middle housing created, in these zones, the jobs housing ratio just drops down to 1.2. And I want to say 1.4 for a jobs housing ratio it's good. That's really good jobs to housing ratio.
Yeah.
Anything above 1 is good. But 1.4 is pretty high. Housing metrics. So everybody wants to know about density, right? And what density is going to look like in Sherwood West. So we took a look at all the residential designations that we have for housing, the total amount of acres in each. We estimated density range for each. And if this plan comes to fruition, let's just say with 0% middle housing, our total average density would be 9.2 dwelling units per acre. But then when we add in density and open space, it drops down to 7.8. And then we looked at, well, what if this plan develops with 10% middle housing, what it would look like. The total average density comes out to 10.6 units per acre, but then it drops down to 9 with the open space that would go along with that. And I just want to say that this plan is it's heavily focused on open space and trails, which is really nice. So I want to say almost 50% of the area is designated as parks and open space. Okay. So next steps here, really quick, process and timeline. We have our next TAC-CAC meeting is late February or early March, and then we're going to have another TAC-CAC meeting at the end of March, maybe early April. We're looking at public hearings on the concept plan this spring, and the CAC will make a recommendation to Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to City Council. That's how the public process works. And then this is actually the timeline that you saw just last month in December that talks about the timeline for EGB expansion and proposal and what that would look like.
Assuming.
Yes, assuming.
Great. Chief, do you have another question?
Yes, questions.
You're unmuted, sir.
Thank you.
We could read your
We
lips.
can read
though.
I said, never mind. Just, that's a lot. It's a lot of housing despite whatever I'd love more jobs, but generally I support the plan. I like the open space. I like the parks, I like the hospitality zone. It has to be further refined. That's what I would be pushing for.
Awesome. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Erica. Appreciate it. Great job. And we'll move on to utility bill.
I can move it. Oh.
Yeah, we've got another presentation.
Sorry.
Oh,
Do you want to do
yeah, so, me, everybody, I just introduced Kathy McWilliams. She's been with the city for about 15 years. She's a program analyst in Public Works. Sarah Smith, or Sarah Lopez, has been with the city for 14 years.
Must have been a marriage in there somewhere.
So it's been a while, but I still
Yeah,
love Sarah, so
that's
it's been
okay.
so, Sarah's our lead architect, and Amy's actually was gonna be here, but she has HOA meeting.
I was thinking she had a conflict, what happened?
So, the team's really been working on this to get where we're at today. I sent out an email just before, coming over, or you guys coming out to the meeting tonight, so we're at a spot, if we go end up putting a bunch more information and all line items, we're gonna have to go to another page. And that's gonna be 12 cents a page. I said 4,000 to 5,000, probably more looking like 5,000 now that I got the numbers, 4,800 to 5,000. That's gonna continue to grow as the city grows. Could decrease a little bit if you get more people, not needing bills, they go paperless. So, besides that, I'll let Kathy take it over if you have any questions. Hoping to get everybody's input. Trying to, I want to call it best management practices, but in the billing world, what we found out, Kathy's done a lot of homework on this between Jen, Manley, and again, with other people, so we should answer some questions. So, Kathy?
Just currently, this is just kind of an overview of the changes between our current bill and our new bill. We added the two new logos, Clean Water Services and Broadband. We never had Clean Water Services on there, but we thought we should add that on there while we were adding broadband. We thought that was a good idea. We added the Sherwood broadband QR code, so customers can quickly access that to learn more about the services. We rolled up the Clean Water Service and City of Sherwood sanitary and surface water line items, mainly because other cities, including Tualatin Valley Water District, who we took it over for, never rolled that up. But I think in 2009, when we rolled that up to be more transparent when we were taking over. We had a rate increase and we wanted people to see where these charges came from. So we decided to roll them up to make less line items on our bills to try to keep it to one page. And that is also as well as the sanitary and surface water. Sorry, did I have a? Oh, sorry, base charges and consumption charges. Yeah, so the same as the consumption charges there. We reformatted the charges and the subtotals in the columns so that it was easier to see what the subtotals for each area was totaled out to be. We just relocated the consumption graph to the top. Our memo, and I'll show you the copies, I'll show you the before and after. So we relocated the memo box. We added the explanation of the Clean Water Service partnership we have. So Sherwood uses that on their bill, and I thought that was a really good information for customers. And then,
Yeah, I see Council President has his hand up.
oh, sorry.
Just one quick comment to respond to Craig's introduction. I have zero interest in having a 3-page bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Me too.
Clean Water Services right-of-way fees, we were gonna remain that, have that left separate on the line as on the bill on the line items. Just to give you an example, this is what our current bill looks like. If everyone does not like the new bill, there is room for Sherwood broadband on the current bill. We would modify that total utility charges. We could get rid of that box. We could put subtotals on the bottom of each box. So there's room to make room for Sherwood broadband charges on the current bill. Typically, like if there's a customer that's past due, there's a whole nother bar on top where you see the meter reading and the consumption. It'll show their past due. If they're past due, we eliminated an urgent bill because we didn't want to send out another bill or another piece of paper in the mail. So we were able to combine that on the next bill to show that they're past due. So we eliminated that, saved some money there. And that would be on the new bill as well. But, so this is doable to make, if everyone liked this bill for any reason. And then on the back of the bill, we had this all along, and I just wanted to outline it, show you guys that we do have detailed definitions of each line item that we charge, so that if we do roll up those fees, people can turn the bill over and really see what those charges are, that they're Sherwood and Clean Water Services.
Is that a legal requirement to have that, or could we just have a URL or a QR code about all of
Not
this?
everybody gets internet access.
Yeah, we just chose to put it on there because we had space.
Okay.
It's pretty common
Yeah.
to have some definitions back there.
It's also a really good reference to when we get customers who call and they're asking, what is this line item? And I can say, well, if we turn the bill over, let's look at this together and talk about it. So it's a good reference that the customer usually has in hand when they call in.
Okay.
And this is the new bill. Now, this is not exactly what it looks like because our mailing company is still working on it. I just got them a correspondence and output file. So they're configuring the data right now, the data points and stuff within their system. So this is really just kind of a mock-up of, we just put the line items in there. Now, the whole box on the left will look different. It'll look more professional. This is just to give you an idea. The graph is, we've moved the graph up on the top, the QR code's up there, the three logos are on top. They added some nice mountains to it.
I think what struck out to me, like, first of all, I like our current bill, I don't have any problem with it anyways, but I like on our current bill how I knew how much exactly was Clean Water Services and how much was Sherwood. So when this struck out to me, like, oh, it looks like these are combined now. And I know when citizens say, oh, the gold water that we pay to Sherwood, the price of gold, and I used to be able to say, well, if you look at your bill, you can see a good chunk does Clean Water. I don't think they can really do that anymore, right? Because they're combined.
Yeah, so what we talked about earlier today, because we.
And I also don't want a 3-page bill, so.
Yeah. We talked about earlier today is that top header right there, this is City of Sherwood and Clean Water Services. We talked about just having a Clean Water Service section and then a City of Sherwood. So we talked about moving that around, so that we could still keep that separated.
Oh, that would work.
So we talked
And
about
that could
that.
still then be a 1-page, a front and back?
Or you could just have two charge columns. One for
Yeah.
CWS and
Oh,
one for
yeah.
Sherwood.
Yeah, we could do that too. So, and then Ben mailing too is, we've gone kind of back and forth in the last few days of some changes. And so they are actually working right now. They're going to send us a couple new samples of maybe things that they recommend to keep it on one page. So maybe they can incorporate everything, and keep it on one page. And I just got that word at 4:00 today, so sorry, I'm getting over a cold.
So if I do not subscribe to Sherwood Broadband, I still see that and it's more of an advertisement?
Yeah.
And then okay.
Yeah, it's just, we
Your
put it,
utility bill.
it's, we
no,
put it there.
That's fine, I'm fine with it. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that it's not an empty spot if I'm.
No, and I talked to Brad, I kind of brought up with Brad, I said, because when you do use the QR code, the Sherwood broadband comes up, and then I said, well, maybe in the future, you can also add within that link to, if you want to pay your utility bill within that QR code, so that they can see everything there. It's not on there
Because
yet.
that's what people are gonna think, because I know I can pay a lot of my bills
Yeah.
with QR code.
Yeah, so that's not on there.
So I apologize. I have some Cub Scouts out there that want to meet with me before the meeting. So Keith, can you finish up running the meeting?
His hands up too.
And his hands up.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention to.
No worries. So on the proposed new bill, towards the bottom after the total amount due, it says make check payable to the City of Sherwood, include account and customer number on check. So I see an account number. Where's the customer number?
That I need to delete, that we don't have a customer number.
Right.
Thanks for that catch. I need to delete that.
And then page 4 of the presentation, which is the back of the bill. right above street fees definitions, that if you read that sentence, I see a problem with that. Does anybody else?
I can't read it from here. What's it say, Keith?
Within Hillsborough.
There's at least that typo. There might be another, but that, we're not doing anything in Hillsborough.
So there needs to be some
Is that what our current bill says?
clean water services, the regional
I don't-
provider, sewer and
We'll have to
stormwater
look
maintenance.
because Ben Mailing, I had to have Ben Mailing actually change the back of this when they were giving me this information. So
Yeah, I mean, from a
It's missing
purely
something.
practical stand, well, it's using the word Hillsborough instead of Sherwood.
Well, that, but
But-
it's missing something else in the
but-
sentence.
But if that is the case, and this is the first time we've heard of it, then that means we're wasting so much time and effort printing this. I mean, maybe we're walking
No,
people
no,
through it. But if, I don't know, I just, if we use this one every thousandth time,
So it's the back of a bill in the bill. So it's instead of a blank back of the bill, people are getting this stuff. I think it's valuable.
I will confirm that, but I don't think it says Hillsborough on our current bill, but I could be wrong. We have read this thing over and
Is
over
it?
and over, you don't even know.
Right. I think it's just. a
so is
presentation.
it, so are you saying, Council President, that it is no more expensive to print two-sided than it is to print one-sided?
No, I'm not saying that, but I think it is important for those that are still getting a paper bill.
Okay.
That the, our customer service can talk with them.
Okay,
It does not.
I'd be in favor of knocking 50 cents off my bill every month if I go electric.
Oh,
I know, it's a
Yes.
different conversation. I'm just saying, incentivize the people, shut down the paper factory here.
right, we have done nothing to incentivize people to go paperless.
And just, I don't know if you heard that, so on our current bill, it does not say Hillsborough. So this is, I knew, I didn't look this over as close because Ben Mailing grabbed some information off of the Hillsborough bill. I think that's what happened because we did have to make a few changes and we just missed that word. We'll make sure we get that fixed, so we don't use that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Those are just the two things that was just kind of like, oops.
And then this is just a side by side, apples to apples. It's, the only difference is on the new bill, we rolled up some of the charges, but the total bill is the same.
Thank you for putting this together.
And then lastly, this is what we all love this. This is the Sherwood broadband bill and, Ben Mailing. They did this 100%. I have no input on the design.
This is for outside, non-resident.
Yes.
People will get broadband and nothing else. will be-
Correct, sorry, yes.
It's a nice looking bill.
Yeah, great job. I can't take any credit.
Say, full color?
The
Yeah.
cost for PG is not anymore, actually, they had just
Okay.
regular printing.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, and by the way, when you went back to the, I didn't have any problem with the current bill, but I do think that the new bill is easier to read and I like all the numbers in the one column on the, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's much better.
Well, and there's also, like Ben Mailing is supposed to provide us a couple recommendations, so there's even the possibility of using 2 additional new samples of something completely different. I don't know, that just brings
Okay.
up, I don't know.
I like the logo to the top and the QR code.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the look of the new one, if we, and even if we can't, but if we could split out the clean water service and city, I think that's good for people to see
Yeah.
somehow, but still maintaining a 2-page bill, not a 3-page, if there's a way.
It has to stay at what.
Yeah.
We can't add a second page, the cost is stupid.
So for my clarity,
My number one criteria, my number 2 criteria is if you can break out the charges, and I think there's space to figure it out.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I trust you, figure it out, I don't care what it looks like, you guys are the experts, I don't need to see it.
Exactly.
Yep.
is there value in somewhere making the statement that folks know that, these are dedicated fund dollars that are paid, they cannot be spent on anything other than these things in which they're as defined. Is that, maybe that's in the back boilerplate?
It's a back item to say, yeah, these are encumbered funds, you know, they can only be used for these services.
Good. When counselors, when you talk about splitting out the fees, so are you suggesting that there be a line item that shows the city of Sherwood base sewer fee instead of it being shown together?
Correct. So I like seeing on the current bill, it says over there, consumption, CWS. I know that money is being billed by Clean Water Services. Consumption, COS, City of Sherwood. I know that that's being billed by City of Sherwood. So I know that my bill, when people say Sherwood is so expensive that half, well, not half, but a good chunk of it is because it's a pass-through from Clean Water Services. You can't tell that on the new bill now. I don't know if it's a big deal. It's just something that stuck out to me.
Yeah, I don't, my feeling would be, I mean, until this meeting, it didn't even occur to me that it wasn't just the check I'm writing to the city of Sherwood. You know, it's all just
Right.
city of Sherwood, and
But that is one thing I actually point out to people when they say, wow, our water bill's so high. And I say, take a look at it and you will see that a good chunk of it is a pass-through from Clean Water Services. It's not the city of Sherwood.
Yeah, the flip side of that though is people see two line items and think they're getting double charged.
Yeah.
I've heard that anecdotally as well. So why am I getting charged twice for sewer? Why am I getting charged twice for water?
yeah.
So I think there's
It's hard to
six in
make
one.
everyone
half dozen.
happy.
It is.
Yeah, we hear both sides.
That's why I would say the breakout is on the back, to say, you know, hey, this is a pass-through. I don't know, there might
But
be.
you
a way
don't know what portion of it's the pass-through then,
Well,
because
we-
it's lumped together.
Right, it's lumped together on the
Right.
bill, but if they are really concerned and they call, it's still separated out in the
The system.
bill, I mean, the system, so
Okay.
it's broken down in the system, so we can say, okay, this portion's Clean Water Services, portion is Sherwood, it's just to make the bill look cleaner and, you know, less line items, because when you start looking at all these
Yeah.
charges and being nickel and dimed is what people feel, that less
Right.
charges is better.
I think
So other counselors, what do you think? Do you like it rolled together as suggested or broken out? Renee, what do you think?
I'm okay with the way that it is. I would go back to what Doug said, as long as it's a one pager, and I would refer to what the staff, they're the experts.
Okay, Dan, what do you think?
I like the new one, and I think that there is room for that second column to split up the water services and city of Sherwood, so that it is broken up, but still on one page for people. That would be my.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think even on one page, if you have a second column, first column is city of Sherwood, second column is outside agency. Then you have numbers in both columns. You're not adding any additional space. You still fits.
Yeah.
If that can work, if that can't work, then it is what it is.
Roll them up. And
I was
Hey,
just
Ray,
saying one thing, it could be a messaging opportunity too, if we do decide to do a roll up. Just to kind of get ahead of those questions, we could put something out there saying, if you're concerned about the breakdown, you can call in and we can give you that breakdown over the phone or something like
I
that.
don't want to be.
No, or
I don't-
frankly, you
yeah.
could just say.
I don't want people to have to be making
Yeah,
that
they don't
extra
have to call, but But that's where the URL could go, right? For more detail, you go to the URL, right? Or, I don't know, not everybody has the internet, but this bill on the right, for me, from a user experience and UI and the cleanness and everything, I think it reads better.
I agree. And the idea of a URL that would give them more detail or something, I'm supportive of that. The idea that if you did that, then you would be clear that those city charges are the city doing what are contractually required to be done with Clean Water Services or something like that. And the federal permit that Clean Water Services has to abide by.
I think our biggest challenge educationally is the amount of people that call this the water bill is, and they're like, why is my water bill $200? Well, your water bill isn't $200. Your water bill is $75. So,
Right.
It's a really good point.
We get that a lot. Utility
Okay.
bill.
I'm making a post about that tonight.
All right, well, we're butting up against 7 o'clock. So general, do Craig and team, do you need more, and Keith and team, do you need more feedback from council? What the next step is?
Well, I'm not really sure with this meeting, am I creating another column or are we just leaving it the way
I think we can
it
create
is?
another room and see if we can do that.
I think you got a half and half split, so, counselors, so
Right.
if you can do it, you can do it, if you can't, you can't, and
Well-
I'm one of those,
Okay.
I can go either way, so.
Okay.
And I think the clear message is do not add another page.
Exactly.
I think we got it, we know what direction, and we can follow the council once we get some information on.
And then if we collectively can create an incentive for people to pay online and get their bill electronically, I think that's a good thing. i.e., you can create yes, a discount for paying online or something, some incentive. And if chronic customers, they don't get a choice, and I don't know.
If we could create where I could schedule my payment would be even nicer. Could we schedule my payment? Not auto pay, I don't wanna be on auto pay, because I don't trust anybody else to take money out of my account. I wanna go into the website and say, pay my bill on the 5th, could I do that with PG? I do that. Like Northwest, I don't want my bank to send out checks either. I want to just go, but, I know, but you can do it with every other utility, just not the sufficient.
We'll look at that when we do the website.
It's not.
We gotta,
Yeah.
all right.
All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks. And if it is a bit, if it is a huge issue.